Across the vast landscapes of Africa, from the red sands of the Sahara to the deep green forests of the Congo Basin, ancient voices are stirring again. Whispers carried by wind, symbols found in forgotten shrines, stories once dismissed as myths, now echo with a clarity the world can no longer ignore. As 2025 unfolds, patterns long described by African seers, priests, and ancestral diviners have begun aligning in ways that feel too profound to dismiss. Something old is awakening, something buried beneath centuries of silence. And its revelations place Africa, not by coincidence, but by destiny, at the center of the world's unfolding story. Centuries before the rest of the world sought to predict the future with technology and data, Africa had already mapped the patterns of time. Prophets, diviners, astronomers, and spiritual custodians across the continent recorded visions of seasons when humanity would face trials, when nature would rebel, when empires would crumble, and when a new awakening would begin. These prophecies were not born from imagination, they were inherited from the ancestors, preserved through rituals, sacred scriptures, carvings, and oral traditions older than most civilizations we study today. The modern world once dismissed these prophecies as myths, stories too old to matter. Colonization tried to bury them, claiming that Africa had no history worth remembering. But as the world shifts, as nature reacts, and as societies unravel, these ancient predictions now mirror unfolding events in ways too precise to ignore. Something powerful is happening, something that places Africa at the center of a global transformation. And today, the time has come to uncover the truth the world was never taught. Long before the arrival of European explorers, Africa was already a continent of prophets, scholars, and cosmic thinkers. In the lands of the Dogon people, astronomical knowledge was preserved with astonishing accuracy, describing star systems modern science only confirmed centuries later. In Yoruba lands, sacred Ifa verses mapped out not only the destinies of individuals, but the rise and fall of nations. In ancient Ethiopia and Nubia, priests guarded scrolls and inscriptions that spoke of world ages, cosmic alignments, and cycles of human transformation that stretched across millennia. Across Bantu civilizations, creation stories carried coded prophecies about migrations, droughts, floods, and the return of forgotten tribes. These narratives were not merely folklore, they were spiritual archives, blueprints of the past, present, and future, woven into chants, dances, and rituals. Every kingdom had its prophets, every clan had its seers, every generation had custodians trained to interpret signs from nature, the stars, and the spirits. But many of these records faced destruction. Colonial invaders burned shrines, outlawed rituals, dismantled temples, and ridiculed African knowledge systems as primitive. Yet, Africans preserved their wisdom in the most powerful way, through memory, through mothers singing ancient verses to children, through elders telling stories by firelight, through masquerades reenacting cosmic battles and divine messages. And now, these ancient fragments, once scattered, fit together again, forming a story that aligns eerily with the world we live in today. The earliest African prophecies often came from nature, the oldest and most honest messenger. Elders taught that when the balance between humans and the earth was broken, the signs would appear everywhere, in the sky, the oceans, the animals, and the soil. These signs were documented in Dogon chants foretelling the sky fire season, a time of intense heat when the sun would scorch the earth more fiercely than before. In 2025, global heat waves and climate extremes mirror those ancient warnings with astonishing accuracy. Bantu ancestral verses spoke of waters rising, reclaiming lands once taken from them. Today, rising sea levels swallow coastlines across the world. Igbo prophecies warned that animals would begin acting out of rhythm when humanity drifted from natural laws. In recent years, migratory birds have shifted routes, insects have changed breeding patterns, and wildlife behaves with increasing unpredictability, echoing ancient warnings of a world in imbalance. African spiritual scientists observe the earth as a living organism, one that reacts, responds, and corrects. The storms, droughts, floods, and unpredictable seasons of 2025 feel like a reflection of prophecies long recited around African firesides. Nature is answering, and the answers match the predictions Africa kept alive for thousands of years. Ancient African prophecies extend far beyond nature into the realms of politics, leadership, and spiritual awakening. Yoruba diviners predicted seasons when corrupt leaders would rise and fall rapidly, unable to hold power because they lacked alignment with divine order. In 2025, the political instability sweeping across various nations mirrors these prophecies, as governments face upheaval and public awakening grows louder and more unified. Ethiopian sacred texts spoke of a return of the seekers, a generation that would rediscover the knowledge stolen or forgotten. Today, young Africans across the continent and diaspora are reconnecting with traditions their ancestors preserved. Shrines once abandoned are being rebuilt. Festivals once hidden for survival are being celebrated openly. African spirituality, once demonized, is now embraced with pride. Prophecies also foretold Africa's rise as a center of renewal. After centuries of exploitation, the continent is becoming a global focal point in culture, technology, resources, and spiritual philosophy. The world is turning toward Africa, not because of chance, but because ancient prophecies foretold a time when Africa would guide humanity into a new era of understanding. African prophecies also spoke of times of great conflict. Zulu Sangomas warned of a coming era where nations across oceans would engage in battles of influence, fighting not just with weapons, but with economies and ideologies. Ethiopian texts described fire nations, whose anger would shake the earth. West African spiritualists predicted a global clash of systems that would expose greed, corruption, and imbalance. The tensions of recent years, political rivalries, global power struggles, economic battles, fit these descriptions with unsettling clarity. Yet African prophecies always held duality. Where there is war, there is also the promise of peace. Many traditions foresaw Africa rising as a stabilizing voice, a continent holding ancient solutions for modern chaos. These prophets believed Africa would provide wisdom to guide humanity away from destruction. They predicted that the world would one day seek answers from the very traditions it once rejected. As global conflicts intensify, that prophecy feels more relevant than ever before. For centuries, African spiritual traditions taught that the ancestors would return, not as physical beings, but through awakening, memory, and consciousness. In 2025, that prophecy is manifesting in extraordinary ways. Millions around the world explore African ancestry through DNA tests, reconnecting with forgotten roots. Symbols such as Adinkra, Nsibidi, and Odu Ifa reappear in global art, music, fashion, and storytelling. African gods and goddesses rise again in film, literature, and digital culture. This is more than interest, it is a spiritual homecoming. The knowledge once forced into hiding is returning with unstoppable force. Young Africans reclaim rituals, herbal knowledge, divination systems, and philosophies their grandparents once practiced in secret. The ancestors are not returning as ghosts, they are returning as wisdom, courage, creativity, and memory. This awakening is one of the strongest signs that the ancient prophecies are unfolding exactly as the elders foresaw. The pattern is clear. The secret African prophecies spoken thousands of years ago are no longer distant echoes. They are living truths unfolding in real time. Nature's warnings, political transformations, global tensions, and spiritual reawakenings all align with the visions preserved by African ancestors. Africa's rise today is not an accident. It is a continuation of a story written long before the world understood its meaning. These prophecies were gifts, warnings to guide humanity, instructions to restore balance, and reminders of the wisdom the world abandoned. As 2025 continues, Africa stands at the center of a global awakening. The ancestors are calling, history is returning, and the future is unfolding exactly as foretold. The time has come to listen. For those who feel the pull of this awakening, for those who want to understand Africa's real story, and for those ready to reclaim the knowledge hidden for centuries, this journey continues here. Join the movement, share this truth, and become part of the rising voice of African history. Subscribe to Deep in History, turn on notifications, and step deeper into the mysteries, prophecies, and forgotten wisdom that the world was never taught. The awakening has begun, and your place in it starts now.